Where to begin? I work for the Department for International Trade. I am employed by them. I sit under something called the e-exporting program, and that was created about 2.5 years ago now. It was actually launched at an autumn fair, and you might be sat there thinking, what are the government going to tell me about digital marketing and online growth? It's a very strange question, but essentially what happened was UKTI at the time identified that there were companies exporting internationally either organically or by accident. And it happens either via their own website or via online third-party platforms like Amazon and eBay. So UKTI identified that this was a really good growth potential for UK businesses, something we're very strong at. So what they did was put a bit of structure in place to help support businesses and develop a strategy that would help accelerate that growth and grow the economy, which is fantastic. However, the government really don't know that much about digital marketing. It tends to be why they shove the letter E in front of everything. So we've got the e-exporting program, we've got the e-nav, we've got, I'm an e-advisor, if you like. So they recruited specialists from around the country to help work with businesses in a long-term partnership with yours to help grow and come up with personalised strategies. So I actually cover the East Midlands region. I've got clones of myself around the different regions. There's one in the West Midlands, there's a couple down in London, Southwest, Northwest, Northeast as well. I sit under the e-exporting program. And primarily it was focused around e-marketplaces, which is the likes of Amazon, eBay, but the UKTI at the time, now DIT, identified that there were 400 of these online sales channels that you could sell to. So that's either selling direct to the consumer or selling business to business. So there are a huge amount of online channels that you can use. However, quite quickly the service grew and grew, and we were asked about all manner of things. So it wasn't just about online sales, it was about digital marketing strategies, social media strategies, logistics, back-end office management systems, CRM systems, translations, localizations, all of this whole remit of things, because digital marketing and digital infrastructure touches on almost every part of the business. So it grew and grew from there. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about in 45 minutes. There's a lot to cover, a lot to go through. But essentially what I'm going to go through is your owned channels, so your own website, your own social media, your personal digital footprint for your business, how you can structure that. Are they going to be, is this going to be sent around afterwards? It can be, yeah, great. Your own channels, your own digital footprint, how you can position that in front of an international audience, and the benefits of doing that. Looking at a more multi-channel strategy, so B2C, direct to consumer, e-marketplaces, the benefits of doing that, the challenges of doing that, flash and private sale models, how you can explore that and use that as a sales channel for international growth, and also B2B e-marketplaces, and that's a kind of subset of e-marketplaces, but a very quick and easy route, if you like. So, the objective of the e-exporting program is to seek out the 364,000 SME businesses that are selling online in the UK and take them to the e-marketplaces or the digital landscape around the world, with the opportunity of selling to 3.5 billion customers. That's how many potential customers are out there if you set your stall up correctly. So there is a huge amount of opportunity there. Why online? You might be asking, well, surely if I go down my traditional routes of agents, distribution, it's something I'm familiar with, it's something I know. Well, actually, we all know that the digital revolution has almost happened now. It's established. We're well versed in the way that the world is going, and e-commerce has gone especially. So there's been a real shift away from physical retail and a huge push towards online and convenience as well. Cross-border trade has grown as a result of this. The internet is a truly global platform, so it means that the traditional ideas of borders and barriers no longer exist. So as long as you work things out right, then the distribution models are a lot smoother, a lot easier. You can set up your warehousing, your logistics to dispatch anywhere in the world very quickly and efficiently. So that digital disruption is there and available. Those tools are accessible to you. So you can also, one of my favorite things about digital marketing is the shortening of the supply chain. So whereas before a manufacturer had to sell to distribution, they would then sell into retail and so on, and everyone would take their cut. Manufacturers, product source, can now sell direct to consumer, which means that there's a lot more potential margin for them to take advantage of. It's just accessing those right channels. If you're a distributor, you have access to a huge variety of a big product set, and you can then access the consumer as well. So again, traditional retail is being turned on its head. So yeah, there are a couple of other reasons why e-commerce is fantastic for cross-border sales, and I'm sure you can all read the slide. What I'm going to show you now is the potential opportunities that are out there. So, let's start with the UK. I don't know if you can all see it, it's quite small, but this is 2015's data, so it's a little bit out of date now, but I don't have a really nice, pretty picture for 2016 yet. But in the UK, in 2015, there were $82 billion worth of sales. We're very good at it in the UK. We are very tech savvy. We're early adopters. We kind of get it. We're also quite lazy shoppers in the UK. We like things to be delivered to us rather than going out to get them. It's something that's been a bit of a benefit for us. So we are the biggest e-commerce market in Europe. When you look at some of our closest neighbours, Germany, $63 billion, and per percentage of population, they are way behind us in terms of e-commerce sales. There's a few reasons for that. Germany tend to be much more considered in their purchasing path, so they take more time, they like to see the product visually in front of them. And they also preferred payment on invoice, so that was a bit of a barrier for a long time, and still kind of lingers there. So in countries like Germany, the returns rate can be up as high as 40%, which can be quite high because people are buying that 3 or 4 of the item, choosing it on the doorstep, which ones that they like, and then sending back the ones that they don't want. It's just their slight difference, slight nuance in the way that their online behavior happens. So that's something you need to be mindful of. Then when you look at France, so France tends to be the 3rd largest e-commerce environment in Europe, with 38 billion in online revenue. Then that's followed by Spain, Italy, and some of the smaller regions as well. So Europe is tend to be treated as one strategy, and if you can get that right, then you instantly get access to a huge audience. Looking further afield, Japan, 70 billion in dollars. That's a huge e-commerce environment, and in Japan there is a huge want for UK products. There's a high provenance for UK manufactured and made products, so that might be a good potential market. Also, in terms of similarities in terms of online behaviors, the Japanese consumer and the UK consumer are very similar. So they're very tech savvy, they're very convenient shoppers, so they like things to be delivered to them. And the logistics network is very similar in Japan as it is to the UK, island nation with good rail, good road infrastructure, so they have a good kind of next day delivery kind of service. So Japan is a real good potential if you can get the translation and the localization set. Similarly, South Korea, it is a smaller opportunity. There is a smaller population, but again, very good online shoppers. When you start looking at some of the bigger e-commerce environments, then you kind of go, wow, okay, some real opportunities there. When you look at the USA, $305 billion, and that is growing very quickly. It's a huge e-commerce environment in America. America like to think they're leading the way in terms of e-commerce, but in fact they are slightly behind the UK. They're not as early adopters as we are. They're not as kind of digitally native as we are. They have a very good, strong traditional retail environment. So their mall sector is very still embedded into those middle belt states of America. And it's also very segmented in terms of strategy. So in America, you need to pay sales tax per state, and it varies, and it means that you might need to adjust your model depending on which regions in America you're focusing on. So that 305 billion tends to be split quite significantly. Then when you look at the biggest, so China is the biggest online opportunity, and it is the one that has the most room to grow as well. It is huge. It's mainly dominated by the kind of tier 1 cities, so Beijing, Shanghai, both of which have populations. Just those cities individually have more population than countries like the Netherlands and Belgium, just in one city. So it shows you the scale of operation there. It has grown up slightly differently in China, whereas we have kind of gone from Windows 95 to Vista to having smaller, laptops that were huge that used to carry around that weighed a ton, to then having slimmer laptops and then tablets and then mobile devices. China has leapfrogged all of that in terms of technology. So they've gone straight from mobile first. So the majority of transactions done in China are all done online via their mobile phone. Also, within China, the internet is kind of ring-fenced. There's something called the Great Firewall of China. So actually accessing the consumer can be a challenge unless you take the right routes, and there are some really nice ways in, and we can go through that later. So China needs to be a separate strategy, but it has a huge online potential. And again, similar things apply that UK provenance is quite high in China, so branded goods tend to do really well. There are certain product categories like mother and baby, food, alcohol in China are huge opportunities. So if you're any of those categories, please come talk to me, because there are some ways in there. So that just shows you the opportunity that's in front of you. If you tackle them one by one or region by region, you can quickly expand the access to the audience that you have. So it's a fantastic route to market. So some of the challenges that you tend to face. The main one being logistics. Amazon are a kind of a prime example of this. They are not, they don't see themselves as an online sales company. They see themselves as a logistics company. All they are fancy warehouses connected to the website. They have really been efficient in the way of in terms of customer service, getting the product delivered to the consumer. That's the mentality you need to have. So if you can be as efficient as possible, then you have a much higher chance of selling online successfully. So there are different logistics models that you can look at, and I'll go through those in a second. Taxes and import duties, so some of the more boring stuff that you need to consider. So what is the actually delivered cost of the item? So if you are selling from the UK to America, you kind of fly under the de minimis value, so you're essentially selling tax-free. In Europe, there are tax thresholds, so as soon as you exceed 30,000 euros in France, in terms of online sales, you need to then register for VAT in France. So there are different rules for different countries, so you need to be aware of those legislations. Data policies and regulations, so they vary from country to country again. So if you are tackling certain markets, then it was worth seeking advice on those things so that you don't kind of come a cropper, essentially. Translation and localization, and I'll go into that quite a bit in detail later on. Payment, so most importantly, how are you going to get the money? In countries like India, where e-commerce is the second largest growing e-commerce environment, but payment on delivery is still the primary payment method, even online. So if someone is paying in rupees in India, how are you going to get that into your bank account before you've dispatched the goods? What is that mechanism that's in place? And then business practices. And this is where the digital world kind of hits reality. Unfortunately, it happens. But you've got to think about how are you going to manage those inquiries that are coming into you? How are you going to translate your product data? What's your returns policy going to be? If someone's shipping back from the USA, do you cover that cost or do they cover the cost? And things like that. And then how much is all this going to cost you in terms of setting this up? So, where do you begin? As I said, logistics is making sure that you are set up correctly. So if you are selling direct to consumer or you're selling business to business, where are you holding your stock? There are a couple of really good ways of drop shipping. So if you are selling direct to consumer, if you've got a warehouse or functionality that can enable you to do that, that is fantastic. You can then forward it onto a freight forwarder, and then they can dispatch globally. And there are some really good models available for that. On top of that, you've got Amazon FBA. So Amazon FBA is where you rent their warehousing space, and then you're utilizing their logistics network. So as soon as an order comes in, they dispatch it. Amazon FBA is also multi-channel fulfillment. So you can tie in different sales channel into their warehousing infrastructure. So that's fantastic. And then third-party logistics. It's similar. You rent the space, you host your stock there, and then as soon as the order comes in, it is triggered out from that logistics center. And depending on which countries you're focusing on, you don't have to adopt the same model. So for Europe, for instance, you could use drop shipping. And then for America, you could use Amazon FBA. And then in a country like Australia, where FBA doesn't exist, you can use a third-party logistics network. So you can have a combination of all three. The reason why the UK are very good at this is because we are very logistics-centric, and especially so in the Midlands. We have a lot of depots. We've got East Midlands Airport, which I think is now 60% freight, and they're aiming to make that 80% international freight. So they've got some really good partners there, like DHL, TNT. So getting your products globally is very quick and easy. Also, selling into Europe is very easy for us because of the trade barriers, and things like that are non-existent. So getting product there tends to be easy, apart from when you start going into Italy, and then you're reliant on their couriers, and they're a little bit slower. So how do you identify opportunities? So if you think your product or service is right for a different market, how do you know that? Well, there are some very good online tools that you can very quickly access. Firstly, your analytics. So your analytics don't just cover your website, but it can cover your social media analytics as well. So look at the traffic through to your website. Are you already getting international visitors or customers? What pages or products are they looking at? Really drill down into that kind of granular level and understand, okay, all our German traffic is going on this product page, all our French users are landing on this page. Why is that? Your analytics will also tell you insightful information about demographics, so who they are, what they want, so ages, interests, so it can really help define your strategy for different markets. Then you've got Google Market Finder. So Google Market Finder is a kind of a combination tool between Google Translate and Google Keyword Planner. If you go onto Global Market Finder, you type in a keyword and select a region, it will tell you how many searches per country there is for that keyword. So it will also tell you the translated keyword as well. So it's a fantastic tool of quickly, in Europe, you can select Europe and a product keyword, and it will instantly tell you, okay, the biggest search volume is coming from X. So straight away, it gives you a point to focus at. You can then take that information and go to Keyword Planner, and from there you can enter in those same keywords, select regions, countries, and it will tell you, okay, the search volumes are X, the competition is Y, and these are the other related topics that are going on around that keyword as well. So you can really start understanding the user behaviors, the kind of consumer want based on the words that they're using. On top of that, Google Trends. So if you don't use the Global Market Finder or the Keyword Planner, just go onto Google Trends, and it's a fantastic tool for the UK and for the world. And you can enter in keywords there, and it will show you 12 years worth of data for keywords. So over time, you can look at things like blue jeans or dog beds, and it will show you the search volume over that period. And then you can drill it down into different countries. When you look at America, it will show you the different states that have that search volume. I did this with a company that did that design modest wear for Islamic women, and they thought, okay, America is going to be a good opportunity there. There's a high population of women that want our items there. So they went onto the Google Trends tool, and they put modest clothing, and they thought, great, we found one state that is fantastic. It has 90% of the search for all America for modest wear. It ended up being Iowa. We went, okay, why is Iowa searching for all modest wear? We realized that it's the Mormon state. So it turns out Mormons are actually tech savvy. But they are all online searching for modest wear. Once you look at that and you go, okay, if you are going to approach America, make sure your advertising spend excludes Iowa, because it will just suck up all your money, and you can focus on different regions with higher population percentage. So looking at tools like that can give you really insightful information. Google Shopper Insights is very similar. It's only available in a beta version at the moment and in America, but that's based on Google Shopping, so the shopping feeds. And it will tell you search volumes for different products, and it will tell you individual trends as well. On top of that, Google Consumer Barometer. So all the ones above are based on search or sales data. Consumer Barometer is based on a qualitative survey that they run in 169 different countries, surveying over 5,000 people in each country. And they ask questions about how people use the internet in those regions, what devices they're using, where they do their research. Is it on social media? Is it from advertising? Where do they find new products? And there's a fantastic section in there about cross-border trade. It asks the question, is language an issue? Is payment an issue? All of these other things. Would you be willing to buy from a different country? And it will show you the percentage of the people that say yes or no. So if there's a high percentage that say, yes, I'm willing to buy from the UK, fantastic. It gives you a good indication that you can start selling there. On top of that, you've got PayPal Passport. And PayPal Passport, there's a couple of tools in there that let you look at the country profile for the online consumers, and it will tell you things like consumer habits, where they shop online, what they shop online, any barriers. So in Germany, returns policy was a key one. In America, it's things like free delivery is a good converter, so making sure you can manage your pricing around that. And it's just a really good identifier of things that you need to do in terms of setting your digital footprint up. And then you've got Santander Trade Portal. And Lloyd's have another portal as well. It's exactly the same, just a different logo, essentially. But you can go on there, look at different online channels. You can find the import volumes by HS code, so the import code for different products. So you can look in per country and say, okay, how many people have imported dog beds into that country? And it will show you the volume and the sales. So it's fantastic information. And then the papers give you some really good kind of country overviews. So demographics, it will tell you the biggest sales channels again. It will tell you everything you need to know and where you need to position yourself to make sure you're successful in those countries. Also, the papers give you a bit of legal information as well. So if you are concerned about data policies and things like that, then it will clearly highlight all of those things in their country reports. Okay, so from those tools, an afternoon of Googling, and when I say Googling, you've got 4 or 5 tools there that you can really get into detail. Google are quite happy to give over their data and make sure that it's accessible to everyone. So you can really spend an afternoon identifying the opportunities just from your desktop. It's fantastic. On top of that, the DIT have researchers and people that can help identify opportunities for you as well. So if you talk to some of us or your international trade advisor, they'll be able to point you in the right direction of someone that can sit with you and identify new market opportunities. So just by quickly doing that, you can understand the markets that you want to approach. The next thing people ask me is, how do I communicate with these different countries? How do I communicate with these customers? And they go, can I use Google Translate? It's the first question people usually ask me. So this is one of my Christmas presents. I was really happy about it. Harry is my favorite. This is the description that was on Argos's website. It's really badly written in the first place because Argos copywriters are not very good. And then I took it into Google Translate and turned it into Chinese, and then I translated it back into English. And this is what came out. Based on that description, I wouldn't buy that product. So that is a simple test every one of you could do to understand, okay, would Google Translate work for me? Is it a potentially viable solution? Google Translate is set to get a lot better in the next few months. They've put an AI program into it, so it's neural learning. So essentially it's a toddler at the moment, and it's going to learn the same rules of language as a toddler in a very similar way. And rather than looking at the very literal translation that you have at the moment, it will look at the context of the phrases. And what that means is, where it says One Direction up there, Google Translate has looked at that and gone, okay, it's talking about navigation. It's talking about which way to go. So it's gone one way in terms of translation. But now it's going to see One Direction, Harry, Niall, Louis, Liam and Zayn, and it will understand that that is the band One Direction rather than navigation. So in the coming months, that will know to replace one way with One Direction. Make sense? Okay, so in the next couple of months, Google Translate is going to get a lot better. In the coming years, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to make communicating a lot more easy and efficient. So there are also other ways that you can translate. The way that I tend to look at it is the more effort and energy you put into it, the higher your conversion rates. So you need to find the point in the middle that it makes worthwhile sense to translate in terms of native translation, which bits need to be translated so that the customers are reassured. So making sure landing pages are translated natively, and terms and conditions, I would always recommend those to be natively translated. But if you I've got a company that's got 35,000 different product lines, and they sell in 79 different countries. There is no feasible way that they can manually translate all that product content. They can barely get all that product content in English, let alone in different languages. So it's finding that kind of spot in the middle that makes it convert at the best rate for the cost. So you also need to translate things like your metadata and things like that, your URL strings, so that your search engines are correct. Using the correct measurements, are they metric or imperial? So the last company I worked for was Whirlpool Corporation, who bought Indesit Company, who owns Hotpoint. So Whirlpool Corporation is an American company. Indesit was an Italian company who owned Hotpoint, which is a predominantly UK brand. All of the measurements for those countries were different in terms of washing machine fittings. So you would have one product that would have 3 different hoses coming out of the back of it. So making sure that that was visible online and compatible to the consumer was an incredibly challenging thing to do, and it was a long process of data mapping and putting those rules in place. So making sure that's relevant. So including currency conversion. So how are you going to manage your pricing strategy? Are you going to do a dynamic exchange rate? So you show your price in English, and then it goes through a converter, and then it shows it in dollars. That's one way of doing it. You can also add or minus a percentage. So currency conversion plus 10%, minus 10%, depending on kind of the extra cost that it takes you to go into that market. Or you can do a fixed price list, which tends to be the best converting, because you can be very specific to the market, and also you don't have to worry about things like rounding up or rounding down. So that can be a way of going about it, but that means the exchange rate will fluctuate below that, and some days you will be more profitable than others. So how you can look at that. Set user expectations. So in America, if they are going to be paying for the duty, or let's take Brazil for an example, so they pay a lot of import duties on products that are going into Brazil. So there can be a bit of frustration that if you don't tell them up front, that they may have to pay almost double to release their products from customs, then they will give you a bad reviews, you will get a bad reputation within that country, and quite quickly you will see your sales slow down and even stop. So as long as you make it clear up front, and you outline put the process in a simple manner for the consumer to I'm completely lost on that sentence. A simple manner online, so that the consumer understands what they're going to pay, how they're going to pay. It makes it very easy for them. And also, one of my personal bugbears is UK companies putting a UK telephone number on their website. So they go 0800 0144 or whatever it is. If international customers are trying to call you, they might not know to put the +44 in front. It's a very simple thing to do, but potential customers may be trying to contact you, and that might be a huge barrier there. So just make sure that the +44 is there. Also, similarly on contact forms, so when they get to the contact us page and they have to fill out a form, this is something I really hate, is UK companies talking to UK customers and asking for a zip code. Every time I see that, I will actively leave a website, because I'm a UK customer, you're a UK company, please get your form correct. And that means that in different countries, addresses are formatted slightly differently, so you need to make sure that that is compatible, and things like that. Right, so that's kind of how you can go from just translation to localization, making it sure that your website is as localized and set to the customer's expectation in their native way as possible. On top of that, one of the most important things, or one of the first things that people ask me about, is the domain. So should I be on a .com, or should I be on a .fr or a .de or a .ie? It all depends on the business. There is no right or wrong here. It's just what's right for your organization. And it might be what's right for the market as well. So if you've got a very strong presence in the UK, it might make sense for you to have a .co.uk website focusing very much on your UK audience. Then, for any kind of incremental growth that you want globally, you can go to a .com as a kind of catch-all. And within that, you can then have different country pages, so .com/DE /FR, and these can start out with kind of basic landing pages and go from there. That approach tends to be the easiest to manage and less effort. And then on top of that, if you want to, so the .com focuses globally. If you have certain markets where you really want to grow and have a separated strategy or a separate communication strategy, it might be worth you having a top-level domain. So that's something like a .ie or a .fr. And then you can have a completely different strategy for that market for the rest of the world. There are a couple of things that you need to consider with this. So if you have a top-level country domain, there are certain restrictions. So in China, you need to have a business business entity registered in China to get a .cn, so that can be a big barrier. Similarly, in Australia, you need an Australian business number to get a .au, and in Germany, you need to have a postage address essentially set up to get a .de. So there are some big barriers there. The good thing about having a top-level country domain is that it's already geo-targeted. So search engines automatically hit that website and see the .de, .fr, and it will automatically know the traffic from France, Germany need to go there. In terms of search, subdirectories, you need to do that geo-targeting. You need to signpost the search engines to tell them which audiences, which pages are relevant to which audiences. All make sense? Good. Right, so that's just one part of the problem. The other part of the problem, so internationalizing your website, making sure that it's accessible and usable for international customers is one part of the problem. The second part of the problem, and probably the most difficult part, is getting highly converting traffic to that website. So what is your international traffic driving strategy? It tends to break down into kind of 4 main areas. So organic traffic, so search engines. I'm very Google-centric. I'm from the UK. Google is the predominant search engine here, whereas in different countries, different search engines have kind of grown up. So in Russia, it's Yandex is the primary search engine. In China, Google is heavily regulated. In most areas of China, you can't even access Google. So Baidu is the search engine that you need to have a strategy for. Yahoo in Japan is still very strong. Recently, mobile devices, the growth of Android in Japan has meant that Google has slightly taken over in terms of search over Yahoo, but still, if you are tackling that market, I would suggest having a Yahoo search strategy. And South Korea, Naver is still very strong. And it's also worth considering that in the US, Bing has quite a high search percentage as well. So coming up with a different strategy for those is incredibly important. On top of that, there's paid. So whether you're paying for search traffic, whether you're paying for social traffic, and social paid is a fantastic way of accessing new customers, just because you can be really laser focused in terms of the demographics that you're looking for and the people that are interested in your actual product. So social advertising or affiliate traffic, so paying commission for traffic providers can be a really good way. The thing with paid is you need to really closely look at your cost per acquisition. So how much marketing spend has it cost me to get that person to buy from the website? And you need to make sure that that math is in place because you don't want to actually be losing money on that. Social media, so this is organic social media. So making sure that you're accessing the right platforms and the right people, so how you can do that. And then referral. So referral traffic is getting links from international websites through to your localized platforms. So how that can drive traffic as well. So in terms of social media, there are some, we're all kind of familiar with Facebooks, the Twitters, the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the LinkedIns of the world. These are very westernized apps. In China, it's very mobile-centric, as I've already said. But the apps that are available in the West may not be available over there. And certain apps started out as copycat apps, but now have gone further and faster than the apps that we have now. So when you look at the likes of Weibo and WeChat, they started out as copycats. If you look at WeChat now, the functionality is mind-blowing. There are over 200 million users that now use WeChat Pay. So they are using WeChat as their payment method. So they will book a restaurant, book a taxi, write a review when they get to the restaurant. When they get to the restaurant, the food, it will trigger the chef to tell them that the food needs to get ready, and it's fantastic, and they will pay for it all within that infrastructure. It is a super app. It's so intelligent. And all that data is also available to you. So you can advertise based on purchasing behavior, which is really fantastic. So WeChat is an incredibly powerful tool, and if you want to see what our social media will look like in 5, 10, 20 years' time, look at WeChat. And there is an English version available as well, so you can start kind of exploring it from there. Renren is the China Facebook. Todo, YouTube is obviously blocked in China, so Todo is the video platform over there. Unfortunately, I'm not even going to attempt the Russian social media platforms. My Russian isn't that good, but yes, please look them up. And if you are searching business-to-business customers, you would use LinkedIn in the UK. For buyers, Zing might be a better approach for Germany and the Netherlands. So, different platforms, understand where your consumers are engaging online and take your messaging to them. Right, so that's your owned channel strategy. So that's pretty much taken most of the presentation. When you talk about multi-channel strategy, then I think there's a presentation just after me at about 12:15 about multi-channel, but this is essentially marketplaces. So accessing customers in platforms that they feel comfortable with. So you can sell on Amazon.com as a seller, and it means that Amazon will take a commission, but you are in control of the sale. So pricing, product information, that's all your domain. And logistics if you're not using FBA. Amazon and eBay are the most commonly known, but they are not global platforms. So Amazon there are only 16 versions of Amazon. It doesn't exist in countries like Poland. And in Australia, it still only sells books, which is crazy. Similarly, in the Netherlands, Amazon doesn't really exist. So where Amazon doesn't exist, eBay's taken a strong foothold. So eBay is the primary sales channel in Australia. Similarly, in the Netherlands, it has a higher volume of sales. But where both of them don't exist, you get different platforms. So in Poland, Allegro is the most popular. Tmall in China is huge, is massive, owned by Alibaba.com and a huge online sales channel. Mercado Libre in South America. It goes on and on. Some of them are very generalist, like Amazon will sell everything to anyone. Others are more specific, so ASOS is on there, for instance, and that's a fashion e-marketplace. So yeah, it's about finding the right channels for your organization. So, are they right for you? The reason why they work so well is because consumers tend to be habitual shoppers. They will go onto these platforms because they have the widest selection of products, and it's a trusted environment for them. They already have login details, their payment methods are already set up. So in Amazon in America, for instance, you can go on, find a product, click buy within one or two clicks. It's fantastic. They trust the service that much. You keep control of the brand, so you update the product information, you are in control of your listings and your management. It's fully integrated with stock and management, so when an order comes in, you can dispatch it from your warehouse without even having to think about it. You can set the pricing rather than if you are selling direct to Amazon as a business customer, then they take control of the pricing. And it's also a good way to test the market. So looking at, you can put 100 products on Amazon.com, for instance, in America, understand what sells well, understand if there's a need or a want for your product, and if there is, potentially launch a US website and drive traffic that way. So yeah, there are some really good reasons why it's a good model to adopt. It's so good, in fact, that we have worked, or we are working with, I think that number has now changed, it's 39 e-marketplaces that we have memorandums of understanding with. So that is a person of contact, a process, and sometimes a preferential rate. So on there at the moment we've got Otto, which is the third largest sales channel in Germany. And the preferential rate is £10,000 reduction in the setup fees. So it is there are some really good opportunities on there, and I would recommend you go onto great.gov and find that portal and understand all the different channels that are available to you, and you can go from there. Usually I would demo it, but I don't think the internet's good enough here. So yeah, a really fantastic tool. The problem when you go into a multi-channel environment is that you may only have one product warehouse, but you'll be selling via multiple channels. So how can you manage that? If a product goes out of stock on your website, you then may need to log into 4 or 5 different websites and then take it off. And there's always that risk that someone's already made a purchase and it's out of stock, and then they're going to have bad customer service. That's going to take you a whole day to talk to them, and it's going to absorb all your time. So there are ways of managing that. Also, when you want to list a new product, you need to go back to all those 5 different platforms, upload all the information, make sure it's all correct. It's really labor intensive. There are some systems in place that make that really efficient. So you can take your product feed from your website, you can then send it to a partner like Anatwine for fashion, Channel Advisor or Pentagon, and they will syndicate that feed out to all the different e-marketplaces that you choose, and then they will aggregate all those orders into one file, and it makes it very streamlined. I think Channel Advisor are somewhere around, and if you want to find more information about them, then just go find them somewhere. Linworks works slightly different. So Linworks is an order management tool. So you host all your stock and inventory information, and then from there you control it, and you can turn on different sales channels, and that includes your own website as well. So that's a slightly different way of managing it. But again, it comes down to that efficiency. If you can be efficient online, then you can be successful online. Right. Other routes that you could look at are flash or member sales sites. So these tend to be very tactical. So they have a bit of a bad reputation in the UK. So the likes of Groupon and Woucher, brands tend to shy away from them because of the kind of they don't want to hurt the brand reputation or devalue their products. In other countries, the perception is completely different. So in China, they are very deal savvy. So they are looking for the best deal. So VIP is the biggest flash sale site in the world, and then there are specific ones in America. So they are kind of category or sector specific. So they work completely differently. So if you think of Ashika in the UK, has a much higher brand perception than something like Groupon, and that kind of is the model that works really well in America. So again, as I say, tactically, if you've got a lot of stock in your warehouse, it's coming to the end of the season, you want to clear that stock, it's holding up all your cash, you can discreetly put it into a channel in Europe or America and get rid of that stock without hurting your sales in the UK. So it's one way of doing it. You can also enter a new market using that channel. So again, if you've tested your products on Amazon or eBay, you know that these products sell well. To get that product into as many consumers' hands as possible, build up a bit of social momentum, build up a good track record of sales, you can then approach some of the flash sales sites, and it will get your products out there very quickly. So yeah, a very tactical model. I think I'm about up for time. I recommend you go to the great.gov website and find out all this information, or talk to your international trade advisor and things like that.